He was once broke, struggling to survive, and the woman he loved treated him like he was nothing, cheating on him, starving him, and eventually kicking him out to marry a rich man. But fate had other plans. Years later, he rose to become a highly successful tech engineer and crypto developer worth millions. Then one ordinary day, he saw her again. His ex, the same woman who had humiliated him, now dirty, broke, homeless, and begging by the roadside with twins. What happened next will leave you speechless. So sit back, relax, and grab your popcorn as we dive into this powerful and emotional story. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and give this video a thumbs up so you never miss any of our unforgettable, life-changing stories. Femi had not always been rich. He wasn't born rich, he was from a very poor family, the kind of home where every naira counted and every dream had to survive on hope alone. His father, Mr. Adibanjo, was a retired primary school teacher who received a pension so small it barely bought food for 2 days. His mother, Mama Femi, sold vegetables at the local market, tomatoes, peppers, onions, all displayed in neat, colorful piles on a wooden table that wobbled whenever the wind blew. They lived in a small 2-room apartment in a noisy part of Lagos. The roof leaked during the rainy season, and during Harmattan, the cold crept in through the cracked windows. Femi slept on a thin mattress on the floor, often waking up stiff and sore. But he never complained. He knew his parents were doing the best they could. From an early age, Femi understood that life was a battlefield. He learned to manage hunger, to stretch the little they had, and to find happiness in small victories. Like when his father brought home suya on payday, or when the landlord didn't knock for rent that month. Femi's big break came when he gained admission into the University of Lagos to study computer science. For his family, it was a moment of pride, but also a new financial burden. His parents sold some of their belongings to pay his first-year fees, and Mama Femi doubled her hours at the market just to send him money for food. While many of his classmates dressed in the latest designer clothes and went to parties every weekend, Femi wore the same pair of jeans for years, washing them so often that the color faded. He didn't care about fashion. His eyes were set on one thing: graduating with top honors and landing a good job. He spent late nights in the campus computer lab, learning programming languages, web development, and cybersecurity, going far beyond the syllabus. Often, he would be the last to leave, locking the door behind him as the security guard yawned impatiently. Still, there were days he had to go without food, drinking gari with cold water to silence his growling stomach. He carried these struggles quietly, never wanting his parents to feel guilty. When graduation finally came, Femi walked out of the hall with his degree in one hand and dreams in the other. He imagined a job in a big tech company, a nice salary, and maybe even a car within the first year. But reality didn't care about his dreams. Months passed and no job came. He printed countless CVs, visiting companies across Lagos, but the answers were always the same. "We'll get back to you." They never did. The little savings he had melted away. He started borrowing money from friends just to keep going. At one point, he considered giving up and working as a cyber cafe attendant. Finally, after 6 long months, he got a job. Not at a fancy tech firm, but at a struggling small company that repaired computers and handled basic IT support for local businesses. They called him their IT engineer, but the pay was barely enough to cover his rent in a cramped, dimly lit one-room apartment and buy simple meals. Still, Femi told himself it was a start. Every morning he wore his neatly ironed shirt and cheap tie, determined to give his best. But it was in those struggling days that his path crossed with Nana, a meeting that would shape the next chapter of his life in ways he could never imagine. In the early months after graduation, Nana drifted into Femi's one-room apartment the way a soft Harmattan breeze slips under a door, quiet at first and then everywhere. She didn't move in officially, but her things did: a small suitcase, a box of wigs, a bottle of expensive body spray he couldn't pronounce. On good evenings, she would laugh at his dry jokes and say, "My genius," tapping his forehead. On bad evenings, she would scan the room, frown at the peeling paint, and sigh the heavy sigh of someone who believed she deserved more. Femi's job paid just enough to keep the landlord polite. He woke before dawn, ironed the same 2 shirts, and trekked to the bus stop with his laptop bag. He was the kind of man who made struggle look tidy. Nana, meanwhile, was between things, as she called it. "I'm weighing options," she'd say, scrolling on her phone, applying lip gloss in the tiny mirror while sitting on his foam mattress. I can't just take any job. I went to school. At first, she cooked jollof that stretched for 2 days, okra soup that made the day feel softer. She waited for him by the window and ran to the door when she heard his key. They would eat together, knees touching, talking about a future flat in Shrewsbury with a balcony and curtains that swayed like music. One day, Femi would whisper. She would smile and say, one day. But one day didn't pay for wigs. One day didn't replace her cracked iPhone screen. One day couldn't book an Uber to see her friend in Lecky. Slowly the warmth thinned. Nana began to compare. Do you know Toby? She asked one night, scattering groundnuts over her lap. He was your course mate now. He just started at a bank. They gave him an apartment in Ikoyi. He has a car, a whole Corolla. Femi nodded, quietly stirring his gari. Good for him. My own path will open. Your path needs to hurry, she said, half joking, half warning. I can't keep eating dreams. The comparisons multiplied. There was always a Toby, a Femi who isn't Femi, a guy with a car, a guy with a job that sounded like it came with an elevator, and a receptionist who smiled with all her teeth. Femi carried it with patience, the way a man carries a bucket with a crack, carefully, hoping none of the water spills. The first real crack appeared on a Thursday. The company generator had coughed itself into a tantrum, so the boss told everyone to go home. Femi took a Danfo halfway, then walked the rest, dodging puddles left by a stubborn afternoon rain. He planned a small surprise. Suya from the roadside stand, an extra portion, pepper tucked in paper like a secret. He pictured Nana's delight, the way she said, my baby, when he did something thoughtful. The door wasn't locked. He heard a laugh first, deep, male, too comfortable in a room that wasn't his. Then Nana's voice, soft and playful in a register she no longer used with him. Femi stood there, Suya grease warming through paper into his palm, and his heart remembered how to beat in his ears. He pushed the door. A man in a crisp polo, watch gleaming, perfume loud, was sitting on the edge of Femi's bed. Nana's wig was off. Her hair was tied in a scarf she wore when she felt at home. The man turned slowly, annoyance first, then a grin that said this would be a story he'd tell someone later with exaggerated hand gestures. Oh, the man said. You didn't say your brother was coming. Leave, Femi said, voice firm, surprising himself. He wasn't violent, but some words pick up stones on their own. The man stood, smirking. Guy, relax. We were just talking. Out, Femi repeated. Now. The man adjusted his belt, winked at Nana, and strolled past Femi, shoulder brushing shoulder in a deliberate challenge. Femi didn't flinch. The man left a scent behind like an insult. When the door clacked shut, silence grew claws. Nana started first. It's not what you think. What do I think? She looked at the floor, then at him, then away again, voice suddenly small. I needed money. He was helping me. Femi set the suya on the table with a care that felt absurd. Helping you how? Data, little things. You know I haven't been working. So you bring him here? Where else do you want me to meet him? She threw her hands up, then caught herself, softened. Baby, I'm sorry, please. Nothing happened, I swear. Femi wanted to believe, wanted to unsee the angle at which the man's shoes faced the bed, the way Nana's scarf sat crooked, like hurried hands had tugged it. He wanted to rewrite the last 5 minutes into something dignified. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Why didn't you tell me you needed anything? I would have found a way. That's the problem, she said, tears arriving on schedule. You always say you will find a way, but the way never comes. I needed to fix my phone. I needed to, look presentable for interviews. You can't even give me transport sometimes. He leaned against the wall and slid down until he was sitting on the cold floor. So this is my punishment for being poor? Nana came to him on her knees, tears bright. No, don't say it like that. You know I love you. She took his hands, squeezed them. I made a mistake. It won't happen again. I swear on my mother's life. Promises filled the room like smoke. He wept, quietly, stubbornly, ashamed. And in the end, because his heart had learned patience long before it learned pride, he nodded. Okay, he said, I forgive you. She exhaled, shuddered, collapsed against his shoulder. Thank you, Avi. I won't forget this. You're a good man. For 2 weeks, peace returned like a shy guest. Nana was attentive again, cooking, lighting candles, wearing his favorite Ankara wrapper. She called him my genius and told friends on the phone, loudly enough for him to hear, that her man was software royalty in the making. Femi took longer routes home, avoiding the kind of shortcuts that led to disappointments. He focused on work, staying late to study new frameworks, telling himself a promotion would plug the leaks in their days. But the river of comparison found its channel again. It began with little cruelties. You ironed this shirt, it still looks rough. Or see how Emmanuel sends his girlfriend money every Friday. Do you even care about me? Or the casual sliding of his plate away with, I can't eat beans again, I'm tired. She started dressing up to see a friend, gloss gleaming, perfume busy. She turned her screen face down when messages arrived. When he asked gentle questions, she heard accusations. So you're policing me now? Because you paid last month's rent? I beg, don't stress me. Femi didn't yell. He'd never learned the vocabulary of rage. He spoke softly, hoping softness could sand the edges off her words. He bought small gifts within his small budget. Hairpins, cheap earrings, airtime cards. They looked smaller on the days she mentioned a friend's iPhone or a weekend at a resort in Ipe. We will get there, he would say. Together. She would smile with only her lips. The second time he didn't catch her in the room, he caught the perfume on their pillow, expensive, male, wrong. He found a second toothbrush in the bathroom, blue with bristles that still remembered someone's teeth. When he asked, she laughed. You're overthinking. My cousin stopped by. You know Sade's boyfriend? He left it. The lie wore no makeup. He let it pass and hated himself later in the quiet. Femi started to pray longer. The prayers weren't ornate. God, give me work. Give me wisdom. Give me favor. Give me a kind heart that is not foolish. He apologized to his stomach when he skipped dinner to save money, and he apologized to his heart when it kept pumping hope into a body that had begun to feel tired. One night, he came home with a bag of groceries he had bargained for like a warrior. Rice, tinned tomatoes, a small pack of chicken. Nana stood in front of the mirror, adjusting a blonde wig, a dress hugging her figure like it had a crush on her. Gold earrings swung when she turned. She was breathtaking in a way that made his breath hurt. Where are you going? He asked, trying to keep the question casual. Out, she said, tapping her phone. A friend's hangout in Lekki. Which friend? She rolled her eyes. Must you know everyone? You don't know him? Him. She faced him. See, Femi, don't start. You know I don't like stress. He swallowed, nodded, set the groceries down. At least call me when you get there. She pecked his cheek the way one tips a waiter, then left. The door closed gently, the silence slammed. He cooked for two, ate for one, kept the second plate covered for hours just in case. When she returned near midnight, her laughter came through the corridor like the last song of a party. He was half asleep, fully awake. How was it? He asked. Fine. She took off her wig, tossed it on the chair, headed for the bathroom. You still awake? Don't you have work tomorrow? He watched the bathroom door. The blue toothbrush was gone. The next morning, he wrote a list in a small notebook. Pray, learn Docker, submit CV to 3 places, love Nana better, be firm, save N1000 today, don't cry. The list was a handrail on a staircase he couldn't yet see. There were good days. She laughed real laughter at a joke he stole from Twitter. She hugged him from behind while he washed plates and said, My prophet, one day you'll surprise all of them. They took a walk at dusk past the roadside buka, holding hands, promising 2 balconies and a gas cooker that lit the first time, every time. He carried those days like a talisman. But there were bad days. The slights sharpened. If you loved me, you would not let me lack. How do I face my friends when their men are doing things? You are too comfortable with small. She blocked him for 3 hours on WhatsApp after he asked where she was, then unblocked him with a good night, dear, as if erasing a message erases a wound. He kept forgiving because he wasn't sure what else to do. He had come from a home where his father kissed his mother's hands when she came back from the market, where apologies were woven into the cloth of ordinary days. He believed in the endurance of love the way some people believe in luck. Then, on a hazy Saturday, as the neighborhood tailor's machine hummed like a bee, Nana sat on the mattress, face serious. Femi, she said, let's talk. His stomach dipped. I'm tired, she said. This struggle, I need more. I deserve more. You deserve everything good, he said, throat tight. Let me try a little longer, please. She looked at his hands, hardworking, gentle, poor, and looked away. Okay, she said after a pause, but things must change. He promised they would. He didn't know how, but he promised anyway. That night, he wrote another list. Raise money for Nana's phone. I'll ask boss for more shifts. Update portfolio site. Don't lose yourself. 2 weeks later, he found an extra gig repairing computers for a small school. He hid the fatigue under smiles and brought Nana a secondhand phone he'd refurbished to shine like new. She squealed, hugged him, posted a boomerang with the caption, "My man," and 3 heart emojis. He felt for one bright moment like a king with a paper crown that somehow held. And then came the mall, and the ring he could barely afford, and the crowd he didn't invite, and the answer that would split the next chapter from this one like a blade. But before that humiliation would come and teach him a different language, there was this fact, stubborn as Lagos traffic. Nana had already crossed a line more than once, and he had chosen forgiveness, folding his pain like a shirt and placing it gently on the shelf, believing love would make space for it. He went to bed that night with his future knocking softly in the next room, waiting to be let in. The Saturday sun poured through the faded curtains in Femi's room, casting light on the single wooden chair, the rickety wardrobe, and the neatly folded clothes on his bed. He had been awake since dawn, staring at the small velvet box in his palm, the one that held all his hope. Inside, a modest silver ring rested, its single cubic zirconia stone catching the light in shy glimmers. It wasn't much. In fact, to anyone else, it might look like nothing. But to Femi, it was everything. The product of 3 months of disciplined savings. He'd taken extra repair jobs after work, skipped meals, and even sold his old laptop to add to the cost. All because he believed that today would change his life. He pictured the moment. Nana's eyes widening, her hands flying to her mouth, the gasp, the joyful yes, that would echo in his ears forever. She was the woman he loved. Despite the mistakes, despite the moments that nearly shattered him, he believed she was worth it. And maybe, just maybe, this would be the turning point. Femi dressed carefully in his cleanest white shirt, the one that still held the faint scent of the lavender soap his mother sent him. His jeans were faded but ironed, and his black shoes shone with the effort of cheap polish. He met Nana at the entrance of one of Lagos's busiest malls. She was radiant, wearing a fitted red dress that hugged her curves and heels that clicked confidently on the tiled floor. Her hair was sleek, makeup flawless, heads turned as she walked. Wow, Femi said softly. You look beautiful. She smiled. You clean up well yourself. They walked together hand in hand past shops glittering with gold chains, expensive perfumes, and imported clothes. Femi's heart raced. He kept touching the ring box in his pocket as if to make sure it was still there. At the food court, he led her to a table in the center. A few people nearby glanced at them with idle curiosity. Nana frowned slightly. Why here? Let's just get food. Femi took a deep breath, dropped to one knee, and pulled the small box from his pocket. Conversations around them slowed. Phones were raised, recording. Nana, he began, voice trembling. From the day I met you, you've made me believe in love. I know I don't have much right now, but I promise you that I'll work hard every day to give you the life you deserve. Will you marry me? Gasps and murmurs rippled through the food court. Strangers smiled, some already filming for Instagram or TikTok. But Nana's expression froze. Femi, get up, she said, her voice low but sharp. He looked up at her, confused. What? This is not the time or place. It's okay, he whispered. Just say yes. Her voice rose, and with it, the temperature of the moment. I can't marry you, Femi. You're a good man, but I can't settle for less. I need a man who's financially stable. I can't suffer in my father's house and then suffer again in my husband's house. I'm sorry. The crowd's smiles turned into awkward stares. A few people exchanged pitying glances. Someone whispered, Chai, see heartbreak. Femi stayed on one knee for a moment too long, the rejection ringing in his ears like a gunshot. Then slowly he stood, closed the ring box, and forced a smile that never reached his eyes. 2 days later, Nana showed up at his apartment. She was calm, almost gentle, as if rehearsing her lines. I do love you, Femi, she said, perching on the edge of his bed. But love is not enough. I can't build a life on promises. I'm seeing someone else, and we're getting married soon. Femi's chest tightened. You mean, that's why you said no? She nodded, not meeting his gaze. I'm from a poor home. I can't marry into another poor home. I deserve a well-doing man. I can't suffer twice. The words cut deeper than any betrayal. They didn't even fight. There was nothing left to fight for. She stood, adjusted her handbag, and said, I wish you the best. And then she left. That was the last time Femi saw Nana, until fate decided to twist the knife years later. The days after Nana's final visit stretched into one long, colorless blur. Femi moved through them like a man underwater. Everything was heavy, muted, and slow. The walls of his one-room apartment seemed to press inward, the air thicker than it had ever been. He stopped opening the curtains. Morning light felt like an insult. The small clock on his wall ticked loudly, reminding him that time was passing and he was standing still. At work, his colleagues noticed the change. The usually polite, focused Femi became withdrawn. He no longer stayed late to study coding or help others with their IT problems. Instead, he sat at his desk, staring at the monitor, hands idle on the keyboard. When asked if he was okay, he forced a small smile and said, I'm fine. But he wasn't fine. Loneliness tightens its grip. The hardest part wasn't just losing Nana. It was the public way it had happened. The humiliation at the mall had gone viral on social media. A blurry video of him kneeling while she rejected him had been shared with captions like, This is why you don't propose broke, and love is sweet when money enter. The comments burned. She's right, love no day pay bills. Guy, work on your bank account before you kneel for woman. Femi stopped checking his phone. He deleted his WhatsApp profile picture. He avoided friends who might have seen the video. Food lost its taste. Days would pass before he realized he hadn't eaten a proper meal. Even his mother's calls became difficult to answer. Femi, are you okay? She would ask in Yoruba, her voice warm and worried. He would lie, I'm fine, Mama, just busy with work. One Thursday evening, the loneliness became unbearable. He had walked home from work in the rain because he didn't want to spend money on transport. His clothes clung to him, cold and heavy. He dropped his wet bag on the floor and sat on the bed, staring at nothing. The sound of the rain outside was steady, almost hypnotic. His mind drifted to the thought he had been avoiding for weeks. What's the point? No one was coming to save him. His career was stagnant. His love life had ended in humiliation. His heart ached in a way that felt permanent. By 9 p.m., he was standing on the pedestrian walkway of 3rd Mainland Bridge. The city stretched out in glittering lights on both sides, the water below black and restless. Cars whooshed past, their drivers unaware of the young man on the edge. He thought of his parents, of how disappointed they might be, or maybe relieved that his suffering was over. He thought of Nana's words, I can't suffer twice. He thought of the faces in the crowd at the mall, the quiet pity in their eyes. One step forward, and it would all be over. Brother, a voice called out. Femi turned slightly. A middle-aged taxi driver in a faded green shirt stood a few meters away, holding an umbrella. Rain drummed against it softly. You day okay? The man asked, his face lined with concern. Femi tried to force a smile. I'm fine. The man stepped closer, shaking his head. No, you're not. I've seen this look before. Young man, your story is not over yet. Don't let someone else's choice be the reason you end your life. Femi's throat tightened. No one had said anything like that to him before. Listen, the man continued, there is more ahead than you can see now. You think you've reached the end, but this is just a bend in the road. Go home, eat something, rest. Tomorrow you will start again. The words sank deep, heavy and warm, cutting through the fog in his head. Femi nodded slowly, stepped back from the edge, and let out a long, shaky breath. Thank you, he whispered. The man smiled faintly. When you make it big, remember tonight, and remember that God still has your name in his book. That night, Femi walked home under the rain, clothes soaked through, but his steps felt different. The darkness was still there, but now there was also a thin, fragile thread of hope. He didn't know it yet, but the bend in the road the taxi driver spoke about was closer than he imagined. The next morning, Femi woke up to the gray light of dawn filtering through his thin curtains. His clothes from the night before still lay in a damp heap on the floor, the smell of rain clinging to the air. For the first time in weeks, he didn't roll over and go back to sleep. The taxi driver's words still echoed in his mind. Your story is not over yet. This is just a bend in the road. Femi sat up slowly. His body felt heavy, but there was a stubborn flicker of energy inside him, the faintest spark of resolve. He brewed a cup of watery tea and sat at his small wooden table, flipping open his old laptop. The screen had a faint crack on the corner, and the keys were shiny from years of use, but it still worked. He began updating his CV that same afternoon while he was troubleshooting a stubborn office printer at his low-paying IT job. His phone vibrated. The name on the screen made his eyebrows lift. Tunde. Unimate. They hadn't spoken in almost a year. Femi answered, trying to sound cheerful. Tunde. Long time. Guy. Tunde's voice was warm and full of energy. I've been trying to reach you. Where have you been hiding? Just working and surviving. Tunde chuckled. Listen, my company is expanding. We need a solid IT guy who can handle both infrastructure and cybersecurity. I immediately thought of you. It's a senior role. Salary's not bad either. Femi almost dropped the printer cable in his hand. Are you serious? Serious like Lagos traffic. Send me your CV today. The interview's next week, but I'll recommend you to HR so they take you seriously. When the call ended, Femi sat still for a few seconds, staring at his reflection in the dark computer screen. Then, with a rush of adrenaline, he emailed his CV. A week later, Femi stood outside the sleek glass building of Skyline Tech Solutions, adjusting the collar of his borrowed blazer. His heart thudded in his chest. This was nothing like the small, dusty offices he was used to. This place smelled like money. From the polished marble floors in the lobby to the chrome elevator doors that reflected his nervous face back at him. The interview panel consisted of 3 people, a woman in a navy suit with sharp eyes, a bearded man in an expensive watch, and a younger guy who typed constantly on a laptop. They grilled him with technical questions, system architecture, cybersecurity threats, server maintenance protocols. Femi's hands were slightly clammy, but his mind was sharp. He answered with calm precision, drawing from all those nights in the university lab and his self-taught coding marathons. When they asked about problem solving, he told them about a time he built a patch from scratch that saved his previous company from losing client data. The bearded man leaned back and smiled faintly. By the time he left the building, Femi felt a strange calm. He hadn't been perfect, but he knew he'd shown them his worth. 3 days later, he got the call. Mr. Adebanjo, this is HR from Skyline Tech. We're pleased to offer you the position of IT manager. Your starting salary will be N$750,000 per month with allowances and benefits. Can you start next Monday? For a moment, Femi couldn't speak. His throat tightened. Yes, I can start, he finally managed. When the call ended, he sat on his bed in stunned silence. Then slowly a smile spread across his face. This was it. The bend in the road, the beginning of the life he had dreamed about. From struggle to stability, the first few months at Skyline were intense. Femi threw himself into the work, often staying late to learn new systems and streamline company processes. His dedication paid off. His bosses noticed. Within 6 months, he was leading a small team. Within a year, his salary doubled. With his growing income, Femi moved out of his cramped one-room apartment into a modest but comfortable 2-bedroom flat. He bought his first car, a neat Toyota Camry, and sent money home regularly to support his parents. But Femi didn't stop there. He began reading about investment. Weekends were spent attending real estate seminars and studying property markets. By his second year at Skyline, he had bought his first piece of land in Lekki. He sold it at a profit 6 months later. Then came more land, then apartments, then short-let properties. By his 3rd year, Femi's life had transformed beyond recognition. He now lived in a luxurious mansion in Lekki Phase 1, a 2-story home with marble floors, glass balconies, and a private pool that glittered under the Lagos sun. He owned 3 cars, a sleek black Mercedes-Benz, a white Range Rover, and a sports coupe that turned heads wherever he went. His wardrobe was filled with tailored suits and imported shoes. Yet for all the comfort, Femi remained disciplined. He hadn't forgotten what it felt like to count coins to buy bread, and though he now mingled with CEOs and investors, he kept his circle small. But fate wasn't done with him. 3 years after Nana had walked out of his life, they would meet again. Not in a mall, not in his one-room apartment, but on a dusty roadside where the tables of fortune had completely turned. It was a hot Saturday afternoon in Lagos, the kind that made the air feel heavy and sticky. Femi had just finished a quick lunch at a popular fast food restaurant in Victoria Island. He was dressed casually, white polo shirt, dark jeans, sunglasses perched on his face, but everything about him radiated quiet wealth. The black Mercedes-Benz GLE parked outside gleamed in the sunlight, its polished chrome catching the eyes of passers-by. He stepped out into the bustling street, adjusting his watch as he headed toward his car. His mind was already on his next meeting with a potential real estate client. But as he approached the driver's door, something caught his attention. A faint, tired voice calling out to strangers. "Please help me feed my children. Anything you have, please." He turned. Just a few steps away, near a cracked pavement where the afternoon sun beat down mercilessly, sat a woman with two small children, twins, on either side of her. The children, no more than 3 years old, wore mismatched clothes and no shoes. Their hair was unkempt, their faces streaked with dirt. One clung to the woman's wrapper, the other sat listlessly, tracing shapes in the dust. The woman herself. Femi froze. It couldn't be. Her head was bent, shielding her face under a faded scarf. Her clothes were worn, and her slippers were barely holding together. But there was something about her posture, the curve of her jaw, the voice. "Nana?" The woman's head snapped up. Her eyes, once sharp and full of confidence, were sunken, ringed with exhaustion. Her skin had lost its glow, her lips dry and cracked. But there was no mistaking her. For a moment, neither spoke. The air between them thickened with shock and shame. You look so good, Femi," she said finally, her voice small and trembling. Femi removed his sunglasses slowly, revealing eyes that held no anger, just quiet astonishment. "And you look so bad, Nana. What happened to you?" She looked away, blinking rapidly. I don't even know where to start." "Try," Femi said, his tone calm but firm. Her voice cracked as she spoke. "After I left you, I married Kola, the man I told you about. He promised me the world, a big house, worse for views, trips abroad, and for a while I had it all. I thought I had made the right choice." She swallowed hard, her fingers tightening on the child beside her. But 2 years later, everything collapsed. Kola was arrested for internet fraud. EFCC came. They took everything. The cars, the house, the accounts. All gone in 1 week. I was left with nothing. And Kola? He's still in prison. Her lips trembled. I had to move to a small room in Ajegunle. No job, no family to help me. The twins, they are my only reason to wake up. I come out here every day to beg so we can eat. Sometimes we sleep on empty stomachs. Femi stood silently, the noise of the street fading into the background. "Get up," he said at last. She hesitated. "What?" "Get up, Nana. Bring the kids. You're coming with me." Her eyes widened, suspicion flickering. "After everything I did to you, you'd still help me?" "I don't pay evil with evil," he replied. "Let's go." She gathered the twins, one on each hip, and followed him to the sleek Mercedes. As they settled inside, she glanced around at the leather seats, the scent of fresh polish and expensive cologne filling the air. "Is this your car?" she asked softly. "One of them," Femi said simply, starting the engine. The drive to his home was silent except for the hum of the air conditioner. Nana kept looking out the window, perhaps trying to imagine the kind of life he now lived. When they pulled into his gated estate, the security guard stood at attention, saluting him. The tall black gates swung open, revealing a sprawling white mansion with glass balconies, manicured lawns, and a sparkling swimming pool. Luxury cars gleamed in the driveway. Nana gasped quietly. Her knees felt weak as she stepped out, clutching the twins' hands. This, this is where you live? She whispered. Yes, Femi said, walking ahead toward the front door. Inside, the air was cool and scented with vanilla. The polished marble floors reflected the soft glow of chandeliers. Servants moved quietly in the background. Femi turned to one of the maids. Show Madame Nana to the visitor's room. Give her clean clothes and prepare a bath for her and the children. And tell the chef to make them something filling. Half an hour later, Nana emerged from the guest room, her hair washed and tied neatly, wearing a simple but fresh dress. The twins, now in clean clothes, looked almost unrecognizable from the dusty children on the roadside. The chef placed plates of steaming jollof rice with fried chicken before them. Nana hesitated only for a moment before digging in. She ate slowly at first, then faster, the way someone who hadn't eaten properly in weeks might. Femi sat across from her, watching silently. When the plates were empty, Nana set down her fork and looked at him. Her voice was low, almost breaking. Femi, I'm sorry for everything I did to you, for the way I treated you. I thought I was making the right choice, but I see now. I was wrong. Please, forgive me. Femi leaned back in his chair. I forgave you a long time ago. In fact, your leaving pushed me to work harder. It gave me the drive to succeed. Her eyes glistened. Do you think we could ever start over? Femi's answer was firm. No, Nana, I have someone now, a woman who stood by me when I had nothing. I can't betray her. That night, Nana lay awake in the comfort of the guest bed, staring at the ceiling. She had never imagined she would end up here, in the house of the man she had once rejected, not as his wife, but as a guest in need. And deep inside, regret gnawed at her like a relentless tide. Morning sunlight spilled through the tall glass windows of Femi's mansion, washing the white marble floors in gold. Nana stirred awake in the plush guest bed, the soft sheets foreign against her skin. For a moment, she forgot where she was, until her eyes landed on the high ceiling, the chandelier above, and the wardrobe stocked with neatly folded clothes the maid had brought for her. She turned her head. The twins were still asleep beside her, their tiny faces peaceful for the first time in weeks. She reached out to touch them, her heart heavy with gratitude. And something else. Regret. This could have been her life. This house, this comfort, this security. All of it could have been hers if she hadn't walked away from Femi. Later that morning, after the maid brought her a breakfast tray of eggs, toast, and fresh orange juice, Nana stepped out of the guest room. She wandered slowly down the wide hallway, her fingers grazing the smooth walls, her feet sinking into the soft Persian rugs. Through an open doorway, she glimpsed Femi's home office. Shelves lined with books, two large computer screens glowing, a sleek leather chair behind an enormous mahogany desk. Further down, she stepped into the living room and stopped in awe. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over a sparkling swimming pool bordered by palm trees. A white Range Rover was parked near a fountain, and in the distance, gardeners trimmed the hedges of a perfectly manicured lawn. It was paradise. Nana stood there, imagining herself as the lady of the house. She pictured hosting parties, wearing silk robes, sipping wine by the pool, while the twins played. She imagined walking into expensive stores without checking price tags. And then she imagined Femi, not as he was now, cold and reserved, but as he had been before, smiling at her, holding her hand, dreaming about one day. She found him in the dining room, sipping coffee while reading from a tablet. He was dressed in a light blue shirt with the sleeves rolled up, his wristwatch gleaming in the morning light. Good morning, she said softly. He looked up briefly. Morning. Did you sleep well? Yes, thank you for everything. She hesitated, then sat opposite him. Femi, I've been thinking. What happened between us? It was my fault. I was foolish. Blind. I chose money over love, and I lost both. Femi set his tablet down, his expression unreadable. We all make choices, Nana. We also live with them. She swallowed, her voice shaking. I know, but I see the man you've become. Successful. Kind. I wish I could be part of your life again. He leaned back in his chair, eyes fixed on her. Nana, when you left, I thought it was the end of me, but it became the making of me. I found strength I didn't know I had. And in that time, I met someone, a woman who stood by me when I had nothing. I love her. I won't betray her. Nana's gaze dropped to her lap. The rejection was calm, polite, but final. For the rest of the day, she moved through the house in a daze. She watched the chef prepare lunch, the maids clean silently, the security guards patrolling the grounds. She watched Femi take calls in his office, speaking confidently about investments and projects she couldn't even understand. Everywhere she looked, she saw what she had thrown away. When evening came, she sat by the window of the guest room, staring at the pool as the water reflected the golden sunset. The twins played on the rug behind her, their laughter soft and innocent. This could have been our life, she thought. I could have been his wife. My children could have grown up here in safety and comfort, but she had made her choice. And now she was just a reminder of his past, not part of his future. The next morning, Nana woke up to the smell of fresh bread wafting into the guest room. For a brief, dreamy moment, she imagined this was her life. Waking up in Femi's mansion every day, her twins playing in the garden, her mornings wrapped in comfort instead of dust and heat. But the reality hit when a soft knock came at the door. The maid stepped in, her hands folded politely. Madam, Ogafemi says you should be ready in 1 hour. He will take you somewhere. Nana's stomach tightened. She didn't know what he meant, but something in the maid's tone told her this wasn't just a drive for sightseeing. 1 hour later, Nana stepped into the living room. The twins were clean, their hair brushed, and they clung to her dress shyly. Femi stood by the door, car keys in hand, wearing a crisp white shirt and tailored trousers. We're going for a drive, he said simply. The ride was quiet. Legos moved past the tinted windows, street vendors calling out prices, Okada riders weaving through traffic, billboards advertising new estates and phone data plans. Nana stole glances at him. His face was calm, but there was a seriousness in his eyes. After about 30 minutes, the car pulled up in front of a neat, freshly painted 2-story building in a quiet neighborhood. Femi turned to face her. This is where you'll stay from now on. Nana blinked. What do you mean? He stepped out, opened her door, and gestured for her to follow. They climbed into the short flight of the stairs to a small but well-kept 2-bedroom apartment. Inside, the walls were freshly painted cream, the tiled floor gleamed, and the rooms were furnished with basic but new furniture. Beds, a couch, a dining table. The rent for 1 year is already paid, he said. The landlord knows you. You won't have to worry about where you and the twins will sleep. Her eyes filled with tears. Femi, I don't know what to say. There's more, he said, pulling an envelope from his pocket. He handed it to her. She opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a thick stack of dollars. Crisp notes, neatly arranged. That's 10,000, he said. Start a business. Feed your children. Build something for yourself. Don't waste it. Nana covered her mouth, the tears spilling freely now. Why? After everything I did to you? After the way I treated you? Why are you doing this? Femi looked at her for a longer moment. Because I don't pay evil with evil. You hurt me, yes, but your choices also pushed me to become who I am today. I don't hate you. In fact, I thank you. But that doesn't mean we can go back. My heart belongs to someone else now. Nana's knees gave way and she sank onto the couch, sobbing. She remembered the days she had mocked his ambition, compared him to richer men, turned her back on him when he needed her most. She remembered the mall, the crowd, the cameras, her cruel words. And now here he was, richer than she had ever imagined, handing her a new life she didn't deserve. He placed the keys on the table and turned to leave. Take care of yourself and take care of them, he said, glancing at the twins. Femi, she whispered, her voice breaking.